Welcome back, all you listeners out there, to Easing the Reader, a read through for me, reread for my guests with the Wheel of Time. We've gone into the next phase, season 2, one might say, as we start with The Great Hunt. My name is Chris Mary Hultman. With me, I have David Green, my constant partner, my Sam Gamgee. Yes. And we have our special guest, John from WotUp. Welcome, John.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it. I enjoy doing this. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. David, there was some news already, or John too. There was news breaking today. Maybe we want to talk about that first, just initially.
Yeah, sure.
About
So
production.
It was reported a few months ago now that the production shut down just prior to Christmas, and they wouldn't be starting back up till April. But it was never really confirmed by anyone at Amazon or any of the cast or crew officially. And Rosamund Pike actually did an interview and pretty much confirmed that shutdown, that it is happening. So that's the big news today, I believe.
Yeah.
That everybody's buzzing about.
Yeah, people finally believe the people.
People finally believe us.
Yeah, because there's a few. Probably still don't. There was a few conflicting reports at the time. Because I think a couple of well-known Wheel of Time content creators were like, "No, it's not. It was planned." And obviously, yourself and What Series were like, "No, it's shut down." So it's good to have the confirmation that John was right.
That's right. Made me feel all warm and fuzzy inside.
No, it's good. It's good to kind of get the confirmation, and as we're going to probably go into the start of the Great Hunt, and we'll kind of talk about how it's going to get adapted. It makes a lot of sense that they didn't take any risks and they just shut it down to finish it as they're doing for season 2. I think season 2 was just basically they were planned to film it in April 2021 anyway, wasn't they?
I'm not entirely sure when they planned on starting it originally, but if they're going to go back and start filming in April, it does make full sense for them to just kind of roll it into season 2. Because I know that during the shutdown, during the last few months, the writers' team has been working pretty diligently, writing and rewriting the scripts and getting them ready for when they go back in April. So that makes sense to me that they're going to roll right in and keep filming.
Yeah. Well, let me ask, when things like this happen, when they shut down, John, you talk to the production team. I mean, does like insurance kick in, or what happens? Because obviously Amazon's going to be losing money on stalled, not having anything to show. So what happens logistically or financially?
Financially, I have no idea how the insurance and whatnot works. I know that they are required to submit a budget to the Czech Republic, to the government. And that budget is then used to consider what kind of tax break they get, because they get up to 20% back whenever they spend in the country, pretty much, which is how we figured out the budget for the show for the first season, because we seen those documents and like, oh, it's about 8 to 15 million an episode or so, which is crazy. But when they shut down like that, they still have everything booked. They still have everything paid for. So I don't know if insurance picks it up or if that rolls over and they get the locations later. I'm not entirely sure. I never actually asked those questions. It wasn't something that interested me specifically. But it makes sense that insurance would probably kick in. They would have insurance for those reasons.
Yeah, it was like the thing is as well. It probably didn't lose a lot of money because like obviously nothing was filming, so it's not like they lost out on that time and someone else came in and used it. It's just basically no one was filming there. The whole thing was closed down.
And yeah. I mean, they're not paying salaries. They're not paying, like, if their workers aren't working, they're not being paid because they get a lot of extra money and tax breaks for using local production teams. So like a lot of people from the Czech Republic were actually helping with all the stuff they're doing. So if they're not filming, those people aren't going to go back home. They're already at home. So.
Yeah. And probably the thing that made sure that they didn't lose money was the fact that they haven't started advertising it yet. Because if you think of the new Bond film, which has had 3 different release dates, and it was literally about to come out, and they were advertising it heavily. I think they spent about $100 million advertising it, and then postponed it. So that's money that they're never ever going to get back, and they'd have to spend again when it's about to come out to advertise it.
Advertising budgets are huge, and I mean historically they're not really going to push the show till about a month out. Yeah. So There were a lot of people expecting a trailer today at some very big football game, American football game, for your listeners.
I'm wondering
but
what.
Amazon came right out and said that wasn't happening. I mean, like, because we're probably not going to see the show until the fall, at least. I recently did an episode where I got information about the dubbing. So they're doing the Portuguese dubbing right now, and the contract was 6 to 9 months. They started in early January. So if it's one of the core languages it drops with, and Amazon does drop it with a bunch of different core languages, you're looking at probably a fall release. And I've heard from a number of people that they're shooting for Black Friday. So I'm hoping we see it in the fall. So we probably won't even see a trailer or any real push until late summer.
Yeah, well, like as late as possible. I mean, they want to get it out 2021, don't they? Because it's been so delayed. But I think as late as possible in 2021 makes sense, because if they're only going to start filming season 2 in April, they don't want to say release season 1 in September and then have to wait 18 months for season 2 to come out.
No, I think the most damaging thing you can do is do what Game of Thrones did and have like a 2-year break between seasons, because I think it hurt it quite a bit. I mean,
Yeah.
people were so excited when the season came, and it just kind of fell flat. But it's the same with Outlander, though, because I mean, like the next season of Outlander is not going to come until I think like late this year or even next year, and now it's already been like a year since the last season.
Yeah, I mean that stuff's unavoidable with the pandemic and everything. But I suppose like with Wheel of Time, where they can spin the plates and get the dates all lined up, they can say, well, we can delay, even if they get it out, say third week of November, and then be like, well, we can bring season 2 out third week in November 2022, so it's a year, and it gives them enough time to finish it all off. Because obviously they have Lord of the Rings as well to fit in somewhere.
We don't want them to compete. I'm sure. I'm sure they're not going to drop them even close to each other.
Yeah. I think wasn't the original plan was basically 6 months. Every 6, it would be Wheel of Time, and then 6 months later, Lord of the Rings. 6 months, and it would be like other side of the calendar from each other. But obviously, it all changed. But Lord of the Rings has finished filming, hasn't it? Because they were able to keep filming for longer in New Zealand. Because I've been keeping an eye on Lord of the Rings as well, because I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan.
I'll most likely be in New Zealand next year.
You can spy for us when you're there.
Well,
right. Take your camera.
Yeah, you get on there with a Hobbit. Well, we won't have hobbits on probably because it's second age, but you never know.
Never know. Well, let's. David, did you have some?
I do. I mean,
quick fire questions for our guest.
Quick fire questions, because like John's been on a couple of times. We just treat him as one of the group, really. We don't do anything special when he comes on. But we have. We thought we'd ask some quick fire questions. So there's a few here. We did them with Matt last time in our season 1 finale. He's the Bowsermon of our show. On the last episode. I don't know what that makes you. Maybe Tom Merrilin.
Oh, I'll take Tom.
Yeah. You just pop in and mid-season and
flourish my cloak and then run away.
Yeah. So, what's your favorite Wheel of Time book?
My favorite Wheel of Time book, Lord of Chaos.
Okay, that's mine as well, actually. Very good. Yeah, excellent. Least favorite?
Least favorite, Path of Daggers.
Oh. Yeah. Well, we got, like Matt said, Crown of Swords, isn't he? I always expect everyone to say Crossroads of Twilight, but there's always... Yeah. Now, I have a cheeky one here. This is one we asked Matt, but I'm going to have to ask you as well. Cameron in the TV show for season 1, yes or no?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, sorry.
Cameron in the TV show for season 1 or season 2?
Season 2.
Season 2, okay, perfect. Favorite male Forsaken?
I'm going to have to say Moradin.
Yeah, cool. Favorite female Forsaken?
Lanfear. That probably was Matt's answer if you asked him that too.
Yeah, I didn't ask him that one. I was like, we know it's Lanfear, so I'm not going to ask you. A well-turned calf or fine ankles?
Fine ankles, 100%.
What is your dream Wheel of Time TV show casting?
My dream casting? So like which actor to play which character?
Yeah.
I would have to say, well, this is a very tough one. This is not going to be a quick fire question for me. This isn't fair.
That's
I
all
would
right.
have to say Bruce Campbell as Val and Luca.
Oh yeah, that would be brilliant. That would be perfect. Who is the worst Forsaken?
The worst Forsaken,
Yeah, as in like the least effective.
Balthamel.
Okay. Yes. Yes. Who would you love to see cut from the TV show?
Cut. Just any character in general.
Any character.
Any character in general. I would love to see. Um, oh, this I don't want to see anybody cut. Honestly, Huron. I'd like to see him cut or amalgamated.
Okay. Yeah, I seen a video of that you did one time. Actually, yeah,
He's, he's, he's,
I
he's
agree.
important, but he's just not there enough. So
Yeah,
stick him and Mr. Sandar together, and I'll be happy.
yeah. That's a great call. Um, Tom's guitar. Discuss.
Super happy about it, honestly. It makes it a little more accessible to the masses because we know that the television show isn't essentially going to be for the readers. It's going to be for everyone else who watched it, and the readers will, obviously watch it as well. And it makes sense because Alexander William can play the guitar, so that helps quite a bit as well, and it gives them a different range of music. I want to see music like they did in The Witcher. Honestly, I don't think we will, but I would really like that. So the guitar makes it a bit easier.
It gives it a good opportunity as well because one of the reasons why The Witcher got so popular was because of that song.
The
So
the, the coin song.
the Coin song, that's a coin to The Witcher. So you know, if they can hit on something like that, because like TV shows these days to break out, they need to become meme worthy or
Mhm.
have something like that. So you never know.
Sound bites. Little sound bite will help a lot.
It does, yeah. What is your favorite Wheel of Time location?
Favorite Wheel of Time location? Bar none, Faldera. You're gonna have to ask that again. I'm turning down my phone.
No, that's fine.
That's my father-in-law texting me. There, I'm turning it down. I'm terrible.
It sounded like we had like canned laughter.
Yeah,
It's like an audience.
it's like we're about
That's
to
Catholic
talk
from
about
Final Fantasy's laughter.
we're about to talk about Faldara, and it's like the laughter from the audience. Okay, last question. If there were more Wheel of Time books, who would you like to see write them? And the answer can't be Brandon Sanderson.
Ooh, that is a very tough one. Um, any author at
Mm,
all
any author, living, obviously.
living? That is a very, very tough one. Can't say me because I'm not an author. I would say to actually write them, I would be really happy if we could get someone like Margaret Weiss. I like the way she treated her characters in her books, and I think that a really more in-depth fantasy would be really like she would treat it really well.
Yeah.
Actually, I was thinking that because I was thinking like, is he gonna go like a traditional high fantasy route, or because to me,
I thought Tad Williams at first, but I couldn't remember if they were still living or not.
no, but it's interesting because Brandon Sanderson is very much of the like kind of like a new school,
Yes, yeah,
and so it is kind of odd that he would take it over, and we can discuss that at a different when we have less to talk about because it feels like that'd be a long discussion. So Margaret Weiss, I think that's a good call because obviously she's a contemporary of Jordan.
yeah.
She
I
probably
think
knew him well, and Tracy Hickman is dead, so
yeah. Well, but she's going to be busy. She's doing new books now too.
Yeah.
Lawsuit is over, and new books are happening. So
She's too busy to do any spin-offs, unfortunately. Matt Hatch said Jim Butcher, which I thought was an interesting.
well, that would be very interesting. It would be a different tone, I think, for sure.
Yeah.
But it'd be interesting.
John
I think-
Scalzi would be somebody that I would say if you've read any of his books,
Yes, yeah.
because
They're
I
good.
do. Locked In is like probably one of my favorite of like kind of new era books, the recent books.
Yeah, maybe it'll happen one day. Who knows?
I would love to see it. I have a question for you too, if you don't mind.
Okay.
If they
Sure.
did more books, what would you like to see as a spin-off book?
I would like to see the rise and fall of Arthur Hawkwind.
After this part of The Great Hunt, so would I, and I would like David Green to write them.
There we go. So
I actually think that though. I mean, I'd love to see the books, but I think if the TV show was successful, I think it would make a great spin-off because it's contained. You can do it in a number of seasons, like 2, 3, 4 seasons, but also as well you can explore the history of a certain um, culture that become quite important in the Wheel of Time as well.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, which I'm quite annoyed quite a lot of people on my appearance on the Dusty Wheel. I say cut them out of the Great Hunt altogether.
Cut them out completely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well let's jump into The Great Hunt while we're at it. We're going to talk about. We're going to actually talk we're going to do 12 chapters in the prologue this time. So we're going to do a long. We're going to try to put it together as much as possible, not to get too long-winded at each chapter. But we have to start with the prologue. I'm just going to say, because I remember very little of, because I did read The Great Hunt, but I remember more of Eye of the World than I do of when I read The Great Hunt for the first time. As I've detailed before, they were required reading when I studied literature at the university, so I was kind of forced into it. But I must also say that I already here in the beginning, for the first 12 chapters, enjoyed The Great Hunt much more than the Eye of the World.
Like as the books go, I find they ramp up, and once you get to the Shadow Rising, they really get very good, I think.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't recall if you've read that far from your.
No, I've only read those two. Great
Oh.
Hunt and Eye of the World. So.
Yeah, I mean, the Great Hunt has. Whenever you ask people the favorite Wheel of Time books, it's usually one of 2 or 3. But then everyone always says, "But I really do like the Great Hunt as well." It has like a real soft spot in people's hearts. I think like it starts off already at the start. It's so different. It's just a different pace to the Eye of the World for a number of reasons. Is because there's more POV breaks than there is in the Eye of the World, so you get to sort of see, you get to spend time a bit of time with Moraine, Jeff from the White Cloaks as well. You have the Dark Friends social party at the beginning, which starts it off on a dark note as well. But the thing as well, which is different to what we've seen so far in the Eye of the World, is that it's the first time where we're settled in one place.
Yes, for more than a few days. Yeah.
Yeah. So we get to kind of spend a bit. I mean, obviously, when we start the story after, we'll talk about the prologue in a second. But when we start the story proper, our main characters have been there for 4 weeks in Valdara. Some time has passed, and we get to explore this place in a way that we've not explored anywhere other than the 2 rivers, really. And even still, the 2 rivers, it's kind of like a hello and a goodbye straight away. Whereas this is the first time where we get to kind of live in a place with the characters for a little while. And so why it's all kind of, obviously with the pace of the Eye of the World, it's like one place then another, then another, and another. So you think it's got that forward motion. In this place, it's all in a confined place over a certain amount of time. But because we jump between characters, it's more of a dynamic story straight away.
I think too, in a way, is that, and we already mentioned Margaret Weiss, and maybe it'll be Hickman and Weiss heavy this season more than David Eddings from last season. But there was for me, there was a familiarity in the storytelling, because obviously when we read Dragons of Autumn Twilight, the characters are already there. I mean, I guess Weiss and Hickman write so that they kind of assume that we already know the characters, though we don't. But they don't go into any deeper detail in who the characters are.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of discover that in the whole series of books. And I mean, Jordan has the luxury of it's kind of like, this could be like the first book if you took away, I mean, it would work with taking away Eye of the World, because there's so many, they kind of recap a little bit what's happened, but they don't delve too much into each character. And even when new characters are introduced, he doesn't spend exorbitant amount of time talking about them. He lets them kind of marinate in our mind, I feel. I don't know if you guys agree.
No, yeah, I do agree. I think he does a good job of bringing you up to speed with what's happened before, and it's in an organic way of characters talking to each other. There's a lot of bits in this where it's just like, Rand talking to Egwene and Egwene saying, "Look, I know that you've channeled before, and this, and this." Or Moraine saying, he's swore that he's never going to touch, so he's never going to touch the power again. But like, that's as good as breathing. I'm saying you never breathe air again. I think that Swan Sanch says that, and it's like, so it's all these kind of characters talking to each other about things that have happened. So it's instead of just like a ream of description saying this is what previously in Wheel of Time we had this and this and this and this and this and this, which some books kind of do, and it's tricky. Like I've just recently finished writing one sequel, and I'm starting to write another, and it is that kind of tricky bit where you don't want to spend too much time going over what just happened, but then you also have to think, well, some people may just pick it up at the second book and start reading, and you have to tell them in some kind of way. Like I remember being a teenager and my mum buying me a Harry Potter book for Christmas. I never heard of Harry Potter at this stage. I think I was 16 or 15 and I got it, and I was looking at it and I was like, I started reading it. I was like, this is kind of weird, like just being thrown in at this point. And I just flipped backwards, and it was like previously in the Harry Potter series, these other three books are available, and I was like, oh, and it's the Goblet of Fire I was reading. And I was like,
Oh no.
oh. But I was had nothing else to do on Christmas Day, so I was like, I'll read it. And but like she did it, I think she actually did. That's one of her strengths. Actually, is kind of doing that thing where it's like this is a lived-in world. These are the events that have happened, and it comes in an organic kind of way. It's not just like a whole chapter of these are the previous last few books. And Jordan does that really, really well, I think.
He does do it really, really well. Like it's there's a few book series out there where they don't do it well at all. And Magic and Recluse comes to mind, where they jump around a lot. They don't really talk about it,
Yeah.
beforehand. But I think Jordan does a really good way of just integrating into the story. There's no, okay, we did all these things. It's just by chapter 5 or 6, you pretty much understand the events of the Eye of the World fairly well. That if you didn't have the book, it'd be fine.
And you know the dynamics between the characters as
Yeah.
well. We actually, I will mention our first Eddin's mention of season 2. He in the Belgariad series, he literally has like a section at the start of each story saying previously in. It's like a prologue. It's supposed to be a prologue, but it's literally this is what happened in the last book, and then the second book it's like in the third book it's like this is what happened in the previous 2 books, and it's just like, oh man, what a guy, what a legend.
Very much so. That's for a whole different podcast. We start with a prologue, which is a much better prologue in many ways than the first prologue we read in the previous book. Also, kind of thrown in. I mean, because we're led to believe at the end that everything is fine and dandy, kind of after uh, after everything is said and done. But here is obviously not, because all the evil guys are just gathered in one place.
Yeah.
They're having a meeting. They're having like a Zoom meeting, basically.
Yeah, they are. It's a great prologue, I think, and it's a great way of setting the tone for the book, and um and expanding the world as well. Like it's like I love how Boars. The only thing I don't love about it is how Robert Jordan keeps referring to him as the man sometimes known as Boars. Who's sometimes known as Boars. It's like I can it in one paragraph, and he says it about 4 times in one
Yeah.
paragraph. But it's like, all right, just call him Boars. Just stop. Right. But I like how he's just kind of like looking at all these people like, oh, they're fools. I know who all these people are. I can tell. It's kind of, but it's a good way of kind of showing you how the dark friends have infiltrated every aspect of society. Um, and I also like how we later on in the Wheel of Time we find out who Bors is, which is always is great. I love that character.
He does seem. I like him, having just met him just recently. I do kind of. I enjoy his outlook on the world. Kind of. He just looks down at everybody.
There's a reason he's a bad guy. He's better than everyone else.
Yeah. But I mean, it was interesting too because we talked about Jordan taking a lot of inspiration from the Arthur legend, and Bors is a knight of the Round Table,
Yeah.
a little known
But yeah, he is.
knight of the Round Table, but he is.
He's also in Holy Grail as well. Monty Python's Holy Grail.
Alright.
He's mentioned in it.
My favorite Monty Python movie.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one.
That's a good one.
My favorite of the knights is Sir not appearing in this film.
Yes, Sir Robin. Yeah. I don't know. I like Sir Robin. Sir Robin ran away a lot.
Yes,
That's
He
good.
made me happy.
I like the fact that they eat Sir Robin's
It's minstrels.
entourage
Yeah.
after a while.
Yeah.
But anyway, so basically, the tone is set here. The Dark Friends are gathering. The dark clouds are on the horizon. They're going to get ready to take over the world. Bosman is not dead. Bors is a mystery. He's a cool dude. I could see him walking around like with a, leather jacket, skinny jeans, a pair of sunglasses if he was in our time.
Yeah. He's a hipster.
Yeah, he's a hipster. He's just a cool cat.
Yeah, he is.
A $12 coffee in his hands.
They do need they do need a really cool guy to play him if they're going to have.
It's a tricky one because or you can have anyone playing him if they do the prologue in season 2, which I hope they do. You can have anyone playing him really because he goes to amusing lengths to hide who he is with his stoop that he works into his costume. It's brilliant. I love it. It's just it's so good. You've got some people there that have just made no effort to hide who they are whatsoever.
Some people, in fact, flaunted who they were because they want people to know they're people of importance and power. So.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. And then you've got him who's just wearing carpets full of black cloaks with a hump and a stoop built into it so he can hide how tall it's so ridiculously brilliant. I love it.
I'm thinking Joel McHale maybe would play a good Bors.
Who knows? Well, you have to. Well, when you meet him, who he really is, you may have a different opinion.
Okay. Right now, I'll picture him as Joel McHale.
Okay, under a load of cloth.
Yes. Well, we basically jump into what is kind of back in. Well, I mean, it's kind of like how we go into now everything is fine and dandy. Rand is practicing. We're in Faldara.
He is, but some naughty wind comes to attack him almost straight away.
Yeah.
Doesn't it?
Which is pretty neat because it's a really good bit of foreshadowing, and you don't know what that particularly could be at this point in the books at all. It could just be a mistake, could be anything else. And for you, Chris, I mean, you'll see later on, you'll put 2 and 2 together and kind of guess what that could have been. But it's neat because at that point you read it and you're like, oh, what could this be?
Mm. But I was also kind of wondering if it's just his imagination, kind of is he, or I was kind of I'm wondering, I wonder what that is. I mean, obviously it is something, but I think Rand himself kind of doubts what it is.
Mm-hmm. It could also be as well, did he do it himself by accident?
Yeah, could be. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it could have done. I don't. We could talk about what we kind of like about the opening. One of the things that I like a lot about it is I'm a big fan of Lan, which I know many people are. But in the Eye of the World is very kind of, you don't really get a lot. You don't see a lot of him beyond he's the warrior who is protective of his Aes Sedai, and he has a little bit of a soft spot for Nynaeve, and he's got a tragic past and everything. But in this book, you start to see, especially at the start, you start to see a little bit of his personality.
You see him as more of a character rather than a faceless protector.
Yeah, exactly. At the beginning of this book, there's a little section in it where what I like to call Lan gets really cocky and around doing cocky things, and it makes me laugh every single time that I reread it. Because there's just like a little section where he's just going around having a big laugh to himself about stuff.
I think there was a lot more humor, comedic elements in this book than I think there was in the previous one. I mean, there were some things that I found funny, humorous in the first book, but that was kind of like the naive attitude the boys had, and I don't think that it was supposed to be funny, but I think it just ended up being funny, just the same as I found it kind of ludicrous or humorous that Rand kept having to say that he was, you know, Tam's son. I'm his son. I'm his son. It's like, okay, people don't kind of go around doing that. He did this a little bit in this one too. But here there's a lot more kind of like subtle, kind of like, yeah, some comic relief that I think was much needed in the first book. You got, your troll killer,
Ingtar.
who's just funnier than all
Yeah.
get out in this in this part of the book.
He just loves killing Trollocs. That's what he lives for. And one of the
He
things
likes killing everything. I think he's just like,
and he hates not killing things. I love that bit where we're jumping ahead a little bit, but when there's the attack, when Padden Fane is sprung, and there's the attack, and Rand's facing down the Midral, and Ingtar appears out of nowhere, and he's like, "This is mine. I'm gonna kill this one." And then meet up again later, and he's like, "Did you kill it?" He's like, "No, I didn't kill it. It ran away."
He ran away.
And he's so disappointed that he doesn't get to kill something.
no, but I think that if what I like mostly about this opening, if we're talking about like basically what happened, what you'd say about this section is basically from the first chapter up until Padden Fane is sprung. You could say it's like one long section, really.
Yeah.
Is that I found that, just like we talked about previously, there's not that much exposition in it. It's not too heavy. There's a lot of, oh, you remember this happening, and you get a lot more, instead of him putting like long monologues of people explaining something, which he did in the first book. There's a lot more subtleness, and there's a lot more through like a dialogue. I'm thinking about like Moraine, and I mean basically the Aes Sedai talking to each other about the situation that they're in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
What do you? So if we take it in two sections, so if we take it from the prologue to Fane escaping, and then from Fane escaping to the party leaving Valdara, John, what do you like about the first section of what works for you, or maybe what doesn't work for you as well?
So for the first section till Fane is sprung, what I think I really liked about that is, and this is kind of maybe not a super popular answer, but Egwene. I really liked her because she really, at this point, was still very naive, still really cared for Fane, was down talking to him, didn't realize how much danger that put her in. She just felt bad for him, no matter how evil people said he was. But all she could remember is the person she knew from before. So I liked that part, because we do get to see that occasionally throughout the whole series, even towards the very end, where we get just brief flashes of complete stupidity or naivety from the characters, but it fits with their character, like before they grow. You know what I mean? And I really liked that. What I didn't like about the first section, I think I would have liked to see that before Fane gets sprung last a little bit longer. Is the thing I would like to see another couple of chapters where Egwene interacts with some of the other characters, maybe where you see a bit more of Lan training them. I would love to have seen more of Lan and Rand together.
Yeah.
I would agree with that, because I'm thinking of, if you look at the next section, and I know we're jumping ahead, but there seems to be, they seem to be fairly adept at fighting, or at least shooting with bows and arrows and stuff like that. And they've never like discussed their training. What do they know? What are they good at? And it becomes kind of like that trope that fantasy authors often fall into, is that their main characters are good at using medieval weaponry very quickly, whereas it's not like shooting a gun. Shooting a bow and arrow isn't like shooting a gun.
the bow and arrow part that was explained in the first book. All three of them were so proficient, Land never bothered to train them because they grew up doing it. And the Two Rivers people, as you go through their books, they're very famous for their bows and their accuracy. So that part, yes, the sword and the axe and whatever Matt happens to use, the staff makes sense for Matt because they used it all along. But the sword and the axe, Perrin practiced with it for a bit, and Land practiced a bit with Brands. I would like to see more of that. Yeah.
Yeah. If you think they're good at using weapons now, just wait until the dragon reborn.
Wait.
You will have a field day with that, with a certain bit in that bit, which is
Well,
a
anyway,
famous scene actually that people genuinely quite love, but it's also like,
Well, I remember playing Dungeons and Dragons, or the Swedish version, and when you have characters that are completely inexperienced at what they do, I mean, there's so many of my buddies' characters like would shoot their fingers off and stuff like that in battle because they rolled completely terrible rolls.
Well, some of the
It was also always entertaining with Dungeons and Dragons is that when you start out, you're horrible, and it kind of like maims and mutilates your character, so he actually gets.
Yeah.
I guess you can think of if you think of it in terms of Dungeons and Dragons, you have the Taveran, and they're just rolling nat 20s the whole time. So they may not have to be really good.
Luck comes in. I mean, you even have a couple of the Shenarians kind of comment about the bows as well, though, don't they? How like when Rand's trying to escape.
In fact, you hold the club. You can't shoot that club.
Yeah. That's a great bit as well. I do enjoy that bit where Rand is just like trying his best to escape, and everyone's just like. And one bit is like, maybe I could just scale down the side of the building, which is again some great foreshadowing for later on in the series.
Well, so basically, that's kind of like the theme of this section is that we're introduced to a bunch of new characters. They talk about what's happened before. Rand wants to escape. Egwene is empathetic to Padan Fain, and that puts them basically all in danger.
Yeah.
Rand talks to the leader of the. She's the leader of the Aes Sedai, as I understand it, the Amron seat.
Yeah,
she is the Joe Biden of the Aes Sedai.
Yes, the Trudeau. I think we should
probably the Trudeau.
say.
Yes.
And that I like that kind of bit, and I like that Land was just like, do this, do that, and there's some kind of rituals that she should perform as he meets her. So I like that bit a lot, and I like that we get all these different points of view. Remember when we talked about this on our very first episode? I was talking about my relationship with the Wheel of Time series, and that I had a very good friend who always said that he loved the books because you got to see it from the perspective of all the different characters, even the bad guys.
Yeah,
which is fairly uncommon, really, in traditional fantasy.
Yeah,
not so much in when you say modern like grimdark, where it's very very common.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's not.
It's something that increasingly comes into the series as it goes on, to the point where some of the main characters aren't even in some of the books. What we would call main characters from the first two books, say, they're just not in it at all. So yeah, it does happen quite a lot. I mean, there's a big kind of in the first section of this before the Thane escape. There's a huge POV shift where we go and follow Spike Cloaks for a little while on the Alma plane, where something is happening, something is coming. It's hinted at a few times that there's people that have just landed on the Almoth plane.
Some bad people.
So, but a question with that is that, because I was kind of wondering, so spring has returned, right?
Faster than ever.
Yes.
It's going really fast.
Yes, and so I'm kind of wondering, in this world, are they just, because I'm also thinking that most people don't know about what happens in the end of the first book, that the Dark One is supposedly dead, but they must, in a way, suspect that something has happened because spring has come so quickly, right?
I don't know if most people suspect that at all, because I think the the way Jordan describes a lot of the common folk in his books is they're just surviving, I think, more than anything else. Maybe some of the Aes Sedai or historians and stuff, they may see a rapid shift in something, but I don't think most people would know.
What about the White Cloaks?
They just think everything's bad.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
like,
They're not exceptionally bright when it comes to worldly matters unless it involves them.
there's something else that happens with the weather. So let's think about it logically and just think. So if from your point of view, Chris, like so the spring was delayed and now it's come really fast and it's cycling through. So you'd think, well, summer's going to be next, and so there's something else that happens with the weather that people notice quite a lot more than just spring coming later than it should do, basically. So there is something that happens because of it, um, but that becomes the kind of focused and new spring, shall we say? Again, like Monty Python, it's kind of like that bit where there's that montage when they're on about the seasons. And it's like,
But weather becomes a theme later
yeah,
on. To go through
yeah,
this.
yeah,
100%.
yeah. That's pretty much what happens. But yeah, so yeah, that. What did you think? So what do you think about this kind of sub? Because again, like there's lots of subplots.
Mm?
What the first start of this book sets up is a lot of subplots. So you have like Rand wanting to escape and like Moraine trying to get him to manipulate him into admitting he's the Dragon Reborn. You have Black Ajar going, you know, you have political unrest within the Aes Sedai as well, where
Yeah.
there's a lot of maneuvering going on. You have Padam Fane's escape. The Great Hunt is started, and we also have these goings on the Almoth Plain. So, like that's all in the first 6 chapters of the book.
Yeah.
It's a lot to kind of
There's
set
a
up.
lot of things, and then I think it lends itself, to have those different points of view. I think the issue with Eye of the World was that you didn't have that shift. You just, you only followed the main characters, and it became very static in a way. And I think that here it's Jordan's writing lends itself better to this kind of storytelling, I find.
Okay.
Because also, I think what I kind of took away from Eye of the World is that you get a lot of reader's fatigue from reading it because of it. There's so much exposition all the time with these characters. I mean, the whole series, them like juggling and singing in different taverns. There's a whole section about like all the different names the different songs have in different areas, and I think you get this like tired in the brain from all the information you get with the same characters.
I think the Eye of the World was not as exciting as this book. There's certainly not near as much going on.
No, that's true.
And as you'll read the series, as you go further on, you'll find that it only exponentially grows.
Yeah. That sequence in the show, which we know they're going to be cutting down from like 50 villages to 1 probably. I was really hoping that we'd get with Tom's guitar being in it. I was really hoping that we'd get like a montage of random Matt doing like Wonderwall,
Yeah.
all this kind of stuff instead. But yeah, so the second part of, one of my favorite bits about the start of the Great Hunt is finally meeting. I'll say finally, but meeting and spending a lot of time with the Amrylin seat, Sanch, which obviously is going to be different in the show because we're going to meet her in season 1.
Yeah.
So I mean, this bit is going to. We can talk briefly like about the TV show, how they're going to adapt it, because I thought for a long time that the first bit of this book, so Thane escaping, would be at the end of the last episode of season 1, because I thought it'd be a good cliffhanger to have him escaping. Not too convinced that's going to happen now, because I think I've seen, I think even one of your videos, John, where the actor playing Padam Thane is only going to be in 1 episode apparently in season 1.
That's the information we have. It may be incorrect. It's possible, but everything we have points to him only being in one episode, and we know he's in the first episode.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because Rafe was talking about it. But the other thing on that is if they're going to finish season 1 at the same time they're going to start filming season 2, they could do his scenes for the end. So it's possible anyway. But that's what I thought it was always going to be. But there's a few things that you have to kind of think about. The first thing is we already are going to have met Swan Sonch. So is she going to come to Faldara? Probably she will do because it's an important part of the story.
Well, we know we're going to see the White Tower in the first season too. We're going to see
Exactly.
Tyrone. We're going to see the White Tower. We're going to see Aes Sedai interacting there. Timeline of it, I don't know. I don't know if it's a flashback or whatnot. But I did an interview with an extra, a year ago now, and she mentioned scenes in Tarvalon where she was there filming. They were filming in Tarvalon, and then we had more information after that that said that they're going to be there. So, and Rafe had mentioned quite a few times that don't expect a shot for shot remake of the first book because they're building a world. So you're going to see things that are in the second book, in the third book, even possibly
Yeah.
pulled into the first season to make the viewers be more invested, which makes sense. I mean, if they just did the Eye of the World, it would be a great fantasy series, but then you don't know much about the Aes Sedai, you don't know much about the inner workings of them, you don't know anything about Tarvalon, you don't know. There's a whole lot of things you don't know that the average viewer probably is going to have a bunch of questions about. So.
Yeah. So here's my thinking. Right. Okay. Since you've been on here the last time, Rafe did a. There's been a few videos. Rafe did a few Q&As, and he basically, in my mind, confirmed that the Trakans aren't going to be in season 1 because he said there's characters going to be cut and moved, and people have guessed who they probably are going to be at this point. So here's my thinking. I think that we don't get to see them in season 1, whatever way, for whatever reason. But that scene where they all meet is going to happen in Faldara in season 2, and they're all going to be with Gawain and Elaine and Aleda are all going to be in Faldara at the start of season 2, and you'll get a version of the scene from book 1 at the start of season 2. I also think we're going to get like a big flashback for Padan Thane as well, because he's obviously going to be a driving force of season 2. So there's a lot. So yeah, so when you think about where this section is going to fit in the season, there's so much stuff that they have to kind of pull from. Like they have to have Elaine and Aleda in season 2. I think.
Yeah, I think we'll meet. Personally, I think we'll meet the Trakans in season 2, and I think we'll see that because if we only meet them very briefly in season 1, and then they become more central to the story, which they do later on. Like I said it before, you have to pay an actor or an actress and say, okay, you're going to be here in one episode for 5 minutes, and then we'll need you 2 years from now.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is very, very hard to do contractually, because I know that a lot of the actors and actresses that are in the show, unless they're the main characters, they don't have contracts that state you will be back 3 years from now, 4 years from now. They're just told that we'll come to you at that time, and if you're available, we'll get you. And that's normal. That's completely normal, especially for a long-running fantasy show, because if they have a contract that states that they have to come back 3 years from now, they can't take other work. And if that's delayed for any reason, it's bad for the actor, it's bad for the production company, bad for everything else. So I think having the Trakans show up in season 2 makes a lot more sense, because then you can go along with Gawain's subplots, which start to happen then, and Galad's subplots. Alida becomes more of a central character, and Elaine obviously becomes much more of a central character with the girls, which to me makes more sense because they're not coming and then going, and then you just meet them and they stay.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is as well, most of those characters, particularly Elaine and Alida, have to meet Rand at some point as well, because it informs so much of what they do afterwards. And if you think about the Great Hunt, and the Wheel of Time, actually, in general, there's no reason for Rand at this point to go to Tarvalon after this straight away. So the only place for them to meet is Faldara. So that's why I think, and it makes sense as well. I mean, they can just be like, well, we were in Tarvalon, so we were in Camlin and we were traveling to Tarvalon, and that we just came to Faldara to meet the Amyrlin at the same time. We all just converged in Faldara. Like, they can do something. I mean, Min's going to be there as well. So
Yeah.
it makes sense.
We'll see me at episode 7 or 8. We don't know which one or both, and she'll be in Faldaris when we meet her, which is good because again, Barrelin, it's a chapter or two, and then you never see it again. Pretty much the whole book series. So why would they waste all that money on a set to never do it again?
Exactly. So like I think again like we now was on the Dusty Wheel talking about adapting season 2, and I genuinely think season 2 and sorry books 2 and books 3 are the toughest to adapt into a TV show because of for various reasons. The structure is very much is similar in both of them. They both have a very similar payoff at the end as well. Um, they both introduce new cultures, one of which disappears for a while and then
Yeah.
comes back.
Yeah.
But there's so many things that happen in it that have to happen um, for character. If you strip it all down, I think like they did how they adapted the Lord of the Rings was what is central to the story of Frodo bringing the ring to Mount Doom. That was like what informs that. You do the same with the Wheel of Time. What is essential to Rand's story of being the Dragon Reborn, and then just think of that from the different characters from that point of view. There is a bit of leg work that they have to do in the first episode, I think, from stuff that they're probably going to leave out of season 1. Um, and that's probably going to make you happy because you're a big fan of the dragons.
I am. I'm a big fan of it.
Yeah. So, but that also means though that like the beginning of this section is so good in the book, but I think it's going to be very different in the TV show for a
I think
number.
so. I think they had said a number of times the spirit. I think the word he used was soul on the spine of the book will be reflected in the TV series, but don't expect it to be exactly the same.
Mm.
So they're going to do a lot of different things to make it work. But like you said, like as long as it works for the journey, I'm going to be happy with that. I look at the TV show as another telling of the wheel. So the fourth age come again, so to speak. Not the same thing, but the same characters in slightly different situations later on. It's the way I look at it.
Exactly. Yeah.
What I took away from this section, and actually until they leave, actually, so they like head out, even a little bit after Padam Fane escapes, because I mean they still stick around a little bit before and have a little bit of a chat before they leave, and where they're going, and different people are going in different directions. Rivendell is what this reminds me of. This entire section is like Rivendell. So
It's the jumping off point of the journey.
yeah, it's like, so I mean it's the same in Lord of the Rings. You have all this exposition beforehand. They converge in Rivendell. That's where everything is set, and the story doesn't really, kick off until after they leave Rivendell, because then they know their purpose.
Yeah.
So that being,
the difference here is that the story kind of kicks off while they're here because things happen. A great way of making something happen is to bring a load of monsters to attack someone.
because that's what happens. So for people who are reading along, obviously Padam Fane is sprung by a bunch of Trollocs, some Fades. There's a bunch of stuff happening. They get in. They figure out that there must be a dark friend somewhere around there who has.
Who do you think the dark friend is?
Oh, that's a good question, Chris.
Ooh.
Or dark friends, plural.
No.
Well, we know that there's definitely one Shannarian dark friend because they're mentioned in the prologue.
I don't know. I don't think I can. I could. I don't know. No, I'd have to think about that. I figured first. No, just because you said that, that's somebody that's going to come back. I was just figuring it was one of the servants. That opened the privy, and they just came in.
Well, like they see one of this. He confirms, like, obviously that's like kind of Jordan does that on purpose, so that people are like, who is the dark friend? And also he mentions 2 Aes Sedai in particular in this meeting as well.
Yeah. So no, I'm gonna have to think about that.
Jordan's very good at foreshadowing, so there's small little clues everywhere. And I know myself personally, and like you guys may have picked up on them way better than I did, but it took me 3 or 4, or I mean, even on my 51st read through, which I'm doing now, I'm still picking up new things and going, oh, that's because this is going to happen 6 books from now or something. You know what I mean? So he's very good at that.
Yeah.
And he's also very good at the surprise, the big reveal. So I find there's quite a few really big reveals in the whole series that I never saw coming on my first read through, not even remotely a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, there's one. We're not up to that point yet, but we might hit it because we're doing 6 chapters at a time this season. So I think we may hit it next time.
Mhm.
There's something that happens soon that caused great debate in the Wheel of Time community for years. And bear in mind, this is book 2. The reveal doesn't happen until book 13. And it caused so much discussion and so many arguments and so many different sort of things. And it's like
Ship's broken,
it's
marriage is dissolved.
all that stuff.
friendship's ruined.
11 books it takes to get the payoff for it. 11 books.
And there are some things Jordan set up that never get a payoff. And that was, I think, on purpose to make you think that, what could happen. But yeah, no, he's the master of the long payoff for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, anyway, he sprung. Ren kind of runs around while all this is happening. He's running around with his sword. He's scaring all the Aes Sedai, who say that he's like running around in their quarters.
Like Conan the Barbarian. He's just in a jerkin, a leather
yes.
jerkin.
Yeah, it's a leather jerkin.
Looking for Egwene. And that comes back to haunt him several times afterwards. They just keep talking about it because apparently that was a big deal. And apparently, is it the green Asha that marry?
Yeah.
And so they're described as very like man eaters. They just love men.
Yeah.
Because I think they mentioned, don't they say that like the green Asha are especially interested in Rand running around and just his jerkin.
They're basically like that's one of the things where when the political side comes into it, where Swan Sanch is kind of saying that like they're gunning for my position basically. She says like red and greens have agreed, which should never happen. They're just completely opposing sides because like the reds hate men, anything to do with men they hate them, and the women and the green do not hate men. Is basically it. But the thing, this is the thing as well with the show. Like, I really think that season 2 should really delve into the politics of the White Tower and the differences in the Ajars and all that kind of stuff, and the Black Ajar. I think that needs to be something to explore.
I think we'll see that in season 1. Honestly,
I hope so because
they cast Leandrin and they told us about her months ago. So she is in season 1,
and Leanne as well. Leanne's in season 1 as well, isn't she? And
yes, and you have Swan, you have Lyanna, you have Leandrin. So there's a whole lot of Aes Sedai in season 1. Mm-hmm. They're just the bigger names that were cast that they're going to talk about. Yeah. I think we'll see some of the inner workings, which is good. I think to explain that earlier than later. Like even I think by the end of this book, there's still a lot of and you do get to spend some time in the tower in this book. There's still a lot of questions about how things work because it wasn't really.
Yeah, I've not read the series as much as you. I think this is my 20th or 21st read through, and even still to this point, I'm always kind of like, well, what do the Red Ajar do other than hating men? Because it's like it's mentioned a few times that like in this book in particular, like, well, there's been 3 false dragons in the last couple of years, and before that, one every generation.
Yeah.
So what is it they do? What do they do? Like, I think what they might end up doing is saying that the Red Ajar are more like the people that kind of police the White Tower in general. If
they police the one power.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like if an Aes Sedai steps out of line, it's the Red Ajar that punish them.
They're like the IA.
Pretty much. Yeah. That would be. I think that's probably what. That would be quite a good angle to kind of do, because like especially with there's some progressive, really progressive for the time stuff in the Wheel of Time in terms of gender and everything, but also there's some stuff that is very of its time, and to have like just like a society of women that are just like their only defining thing is that they hate men is it's a little bit kind of like come on, it's kind of
Still
like
love
it's
those,
kind of like it's a very old kind of trope, and I
Mm.
think if it turns them more into that they are like they are the disciplinarians of the one power, and they look after it and they make sure everyone's in line, and if there's anyone that steps out of line with it, they're the ones that step in, and it brings you that kind of fear then as well for all of the characters, because in this section where like Moraine is kind of like, oh, the Red Ajar, they really want to send you off to a cottage and all this kind of stuff, and she's just kind of like, whatever. It wouldn't be pleasant, but I'll be all right. Like
Yeah.
it should be more of a kind of like, shit, the Red Ajar are after me. Like I really, this is, and then obviously as things progress in the story, particularly in the White Tower plot line, that would be more of a kind of a threat of shit. The Red Ajar are like this. There's something to be feared.
So they're kind of like the Inquisition
Yeah.
No one expects the Spanish Inquisition.
No,
or the Red Ajar.
no one suspects the Red Ajar, but everyone suspects the Red Ajar.
Well, I guess I wouldn't be too unhappy if the Green Ajar came for me. They seem like nice people.
They seem like nice people.
Anyway, let's move.
That's the thing when we start meeting more of the Forsaken, people are always like, which Forsaken would you like to be captured by? Most people, most men are like, Lanfear or Grendel. It's that they're fine.
It'd be okay.
So what happens is they find out that Padanfain has left. They've taken the horn and they've taken the dagger, which is not good for Matt
No.
because they can't fix him without the dagger.
They try to fix him and they fail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they decide that it's time to we just got to go. We got to hunt for them, and the Amazon is going. She's going to Tarvalon, right?
Yes.
Yes, and the others are just chasing Padanfain, and Ingtar is super stoked. He puts on his helmet with his crescent moon on top. He's finally going to get out and get some work done.
He's so excited to go and kill something.
So excited. I mean, I find him. He's my new favorite character because he's just like
Chris, you're gonna love this book.
Yep.
Because he doesn't give a shit. He just
wants to kill things. That's what he lives for. He wants to kill things.
He's kind of like Vin Diesel in Triple X.
To carry on the Monty Python Holy Grail thing, he's like Lancelot in that he just, if there's a castle they need to storm, he'll just run up to it with his sword and just start hitting the bricks with his sword. Like that's what he'll do. He's a great guy. Loves killing things. Sad when he can't kill something. And that Singtar is great. What do you think about though? Like obviously they split the characters up in a way, as sequels often do. But again, it's very much the women go and do one thing and the men go and do something else.
Obviously. Well, one thing I just wanted to say first is I loved the prophecy, or not really the prophecy, the note that was left. The writing in Prologue script. I found that was very nice.
John's a big fan of this as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah. And that's all I wanted to say. I liked it. It was a good time.
John, tell us a little bit about the Dark Prophecy. What is it that you like about? Obviously, the series has been quite prophecy heavy so far, and the start of 2 really doubles down on that.
I like the idea, and this is going to be hard to talk about without giving too much away or saying things that Chris shouldn't know. So
you're very good at that, though. You're great.
I'm going to try to be very careful. So with the Dark Prophecy, what I really enjoyed about that is, like I said, George's the king of foreshadowing. So he uses different characters, different situations, and then later on in the series, he'll use different areas, I guess is the best way to put it, to give the reader clues of what's going to happen. And not many fantasy series go the route of the bad guys having the same sort of prophecies as the good guys. And this, what was written and whatnot, is referred to a bunch of times throughout the series as a dark prophecy, and dark prophecies exist. And it's sort of like it can help. How do I say this without giving too much away? It can help the bad guys just as much as it can help the good guys, which is really neat. And this particular one, if you pay attention to the wording of it, it gives very big clues for what happens later on, which is nice. But again, I didn't pick up on it until a couple of reads through. And I don't know about you, David, if your first read through, you even, I read it and I was like, oh, that's cool, and I kept going. And then later on, I was reading the book and I went, oh crap. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it does help with the big reveal moments later on. But I like the idea of the bad guys having that as well.
Yeah.
It's something I want to mention that is off. I got about 10 minutes left
Yeah.
before I have to jet. So
yeah, well, I mean, yeah, and really, I mean, we're kind of go back to a lot of things. There's a lot of similarities with what happens in the first book when they start traveling. I mean, it's and David, you were talking about like they obviously the men go do their thing, they go do man things, and the women go do women things. Even though the women here are a lot more powerful, but I did find that the part when we get like Nynaeve's point of view was less interesting because it basically just felt like they were just talking. They were just like bickering a bit.
Yeah, I think when they first kind of set off, so chapter 12 is kind of the first chapter that treads water a little bit and kind of retreads things a little bit just to kind of catch people up with the dynamic between Nynaeve and Egwene and
I think you'll see that more often as the book goes through too. You'll a lot of excitement, but then you'll have little sections of the book where you're just like,
yeah.
like I don't like it's not as exciting, so to speak, but it is necessary to build their characters, which I
Yeah.
like.
But in like opposition to that, what happens with, well, I'm just going to say Ingtar's party is a lot more exciting because we're starting to, and it goes back a little bit to the whole the dark aspect and kind of like, well, kind of like you see the fantasy, how fantasy is so related to horror, because we see it again with there these Rand has this where he has this like recurring vision of what happens to a family in a house.
Yes.
And I thought that was very poignant. That was very, very dark. And that was very first, because I ended up listening to, like, I read the chapters and then I actually ended up listening to 1 to 12 just like this weekend.
Yeah.
Just to get everything fresh. Unfortunately, the woman who reads the Nynaeve parts or the female parts, because they split them up, she's not that great. So she makes it it's even more dull to listen to that than it was to read it, unfortunately. And I'm obviously very annoyed that they pronounce things very differently.
Yeah, you hate that. You hate that, don't you?
I do. Is her name Moraine or Moiraine? Which is what the woman calls her.
We'll find out November 2021 probably. Yeah.
But anyway, what I wanted to say is that this, and especially when they find the Fade nailed to the door, I mean, all of that stuff is just like great stuff, because it's like this is some real, because before the threats that they've faced up until the end, when they make the Forsaken and everything like that, was kind of like, we were talking about the Trollocs are kind of like bumbling idiots. And they've been scared of Fades and everything else, but there hasn't been that real big threat. As a reader, you don't understand what is so scary when Rand can kill Nog without even trying.
Yeah.
But here we're starting to see like, oh, there's some real bad stuff that can happen.
Mm-hmm. There is. And there's more to come next time. So that is the start of The Great Hunt. Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one. Like my views were on season 2 were to mix 2 and 3 together and do some So I had a crazy version of doing it, and I just talked about that one, which it provoked a discussion that is still kind of going on. I'm now officially the Sean Chan hater in the Wheel of Time community. I don't hate the Sean Chan. I love them. I think they're great. I just think that they need to have more. If you're going to mix books 2 and 3 together, something has to give somewhere, because there's two cultures that are introduced at pretty much the same time. One of them disappears for about three books afterwards. But it's, there's not to say that books 2 and 3 have to be in season 2, although I think they might well be. Anyway, John is back to talk a little bit more about what I was just kind of bumbled my way through about the competition going on at Dusty Wheel, which you're involved in.
Yes. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we hear you well.
Okay, awesome. Sorry about that, technical difficulties and whatnot. So we're running a contest right now. It's a parody song contest. So we're taking songs, like submissions from people who take a song and they'll write a parody of it to music. And submissions close by midnight, February 21st, and we're going to judge them. We have a couple of surprise judges that are going to come in with us when we do judge them. I don't announce them just yet, but they will be announced probably a week or two prior to the actual airing of the show. But I'll let you know that we do have a couple of surprise judges coming in. And on March 3rd in the Dusty Wheel, we're going to show them, kind of like the meme challenge we did. We'll show them to the audience. We'll have the people in live chat vote on them, what they like. And we're going to give out quite a few different prizes. So we have some really nice prizes that, again, we're probably not going to announce for a week or two prior to, but it'll be bigger than the meme challenge prizes. And I will mention that for those of you who don't know what to do, Matt Hatch put out a video of him doing a rendition of Freak, which I'm sure David at least seen. I don't know, Chris, if you've seen it or not, but it was Creep was the original song. And he put that out, and he was quite embarrassed to put that out, but he did it. And so, not to be outdone, later today, I'm calling it my parody, but it's not really my parody. It's going to come out. I wrote the lyrics to it, but my daughter sang with my brother's band. So I didn't perform anything. I did the video though.
The video.
It is far more. David,
I've seen it. It's very good.
Yeah. It's far more embarrassing than Matt's video. So I couldn't be outdone by Matt.
Matt's was good as well. I liked Matt's a lot. Like, I'm a big Radiohead fan, so it was the Wheel of Time Radiohead mashup that I always wanted. And
I thought it was Freak. I thought it was Freak by Chic.
Yeah, and then I saw yours, John, and yours is just like with a video and everything as well. It's just it's a work of art. Needs to be seen by a large audience.
Yeah, it's one of those things you say once it's on the internet, it's there forever, and this will be there forever.
It will, yeah, it will.
100%.
It will, definitely.
I think the Bare Naked Ladies might need another songwriter, so you might have a career with them. So you call up Ed Roberts and see if we can get you some work.
So that's it for this time. So John, thanks very much for coming on and helping us kick off the Great Hunt. It
was a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. It's a lot of fun. I hope you're back another time as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's a big series.
There's enough books left. You can have me on at least once more.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much, guys.
Do you think? I mean, and hear me out here. I know that things are maybe different in reality, but wouldn't it be smart to kind of re-edit the show to get it out earlier? I mean, they've probably taped a lot of stuff and kind of change where they place things.
Yeah, I think they will do. I mean, I think there's going to be, from what we know, Min is going to be at Fal Dara, which obviously doesn't happen in the books. So they're going to spend a fair bit of time there, which they didn't do before, with different events and everything. But in terms of getting the show out quicker, like episodes 1 to 6 are done and filmed, and they've done some pickup shots for it and everything like that. and they're going back and they've done parts of episodes 7 and 8. I think they finished 4 weeks early, I think, than what they were going to finish, due to COVID and everything like that. And then they're going back to film in April. Now, what they could do is Amazon generally what they like to do with their series is release the first 3 episodes on one day, and then it's week after. That's what they generally do these days. But what you could do with Wheel of Time, if it's 8 episodes, that's 2 months. So when you air the first episode, you've got 2 months left to the last one. So they could still be working on last episode. Like, if it's not finished, they've got 2 months before they have to finish it. Like, that's not unheard of with TV. I mean, that's used to be the model of it. Like when seasons used to be 24 episodes, you would they would still be filming the season when it aired, like, and they'd be catching up, and that's why a lot of like Lost is a famous example of it, where some things they changed towards the end of the season depending on what fan reaction was at the start of the season. Where like there's a couple of characters called Nikki and Paolo that were in season 3, I think it was, or maybe season 2.
They're the ones that die.
That die, yeah.
There's like one episode just about them.
Well, they were meant to be in it a little bit longer, and people hated them, and then they just wrote them. They killed them off. They changed the plans because people hated them, and they were still
the worst episode of them all.
Yeah, that and the one where Jack. They explained how Jack got his tattoos were both quite bad. And I'm a big Lost fan as well.
Me too. I'm a big Lost fan.
But yeah, so I mean, it happens. So like feasibly, that like John before was talking about, Thanksgiving makes sense to do it. But if they wanted to do it earlier, they could, because they could still be working on the last 2 episodes to finish them off. Because they say like they go back in April and they finish filming, and then they finish filming by May for those 2 episodes. That's May then till whenever they've got to work on special effects, scoring, that kind of stuff. They can do reshoots because they're filming for season 2 as well. So, but I think regardless, the season is going to be quite a lot different from it's not just going to be The Eye of the World, the book. We know that there's going to be more Lagain. We know that there's characters from New Spring that are in it that die in New Spring that are in season 1 of the show. We know that Swan Sanche and Leanne and Leandrin are all in season 1, even though they're not in season 2. So we know that there's going to be some things that are like remixed and changed around them and everything. What I presume what might happen is that scene that they talk about in The Great Hunt, where Swan is talking about how the Aes Sedai sitters are voted against her about, and almost did about Moraine. That will probably happen in the show. We'll probably see that because obviously Leandrin was there and everything as well. So, but I know there's other bits where we're going to see some of them, like Legain's capture and gentling, I think we'll see on screen. And instead of bringing him to Camlin, I think they'll just bring him straight to Tar Valon. I think that's where it'll happen, and we'll see it on screen as well. So there's going to be a lot of differences. I'm still not sure how it will finish. Like, I mean, you want to finish it with a cliffhanger because you want to say to people, because the way the Eye of the World is, when you're going to finish it with a big battle at Tarwin's Gap, and what you do with the Bowsermon aspect of it and the trippy bit, I'm not sure what they're going to do with that. But you don't want to. If it finishes there, it's not a cliffhanger. It's kind of just like, well, everything's wrapped up. They've saved the day and that sort of stuff. You want to finish it with a cliffhanger. So you've either got two. In my mind, you've got 2 ways to do it. If the Sean Chan are going to be in season 2 and they're not going to just cut them out, which they could do. They talk about it very early in the book that there's people landing on the Almoth plane and all this kind of people. There's this thing is happening. You could show that happening at the end. That's the end of season 1. The other thing they could do was have Padden Thane escape with the horn at the end of season 1, and then that's like setting up the drive for season 2.
Yeah.
Which I think I would do if it was my decision, which obviously it's not. But like, if I was going to do it, I would be like, that's a good cliffhanger to do because it's it shows that the threat isn't over. There's something else that's on the horizon. Um, Sets up the villain for season 2, and the motivation for some of the characters for season 2 as well. It shows all that, and then I would start season 2 off with the prologue of book 2. I think that would be a good opening as well.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, I think that's we'll call it a day for this season or episode 1 of season 2, The Great Hunt.
Yes.
Follow us on Twitter and on Instagram, and you always say, like, give us a like or a follow on social medias or wherever you get your podcast. But I don't think there are many podcast like vehicles that actually do that anymore. It's like, I think it's only iTunes really that does that. Otherwise, you can't like us on Spotify. It doesn't have that kind of function. So
You can share us though. Share us.
share us.
Although we
Share
might
us.
end up because we video these when we do, so we might end up recording these as well and just start putting them on a YouTube channel at some point in the future as well.
Exactly. Yeah. So share us, tweet it out, Facebook it out, use Kick, put us up on Tinder, whatever whatever social media you use.
Don't put us on Tinder. I'm married, so.
Well, I'm married too. But say, like, somebody might say, you know what? I really like this show, and they might find their partner that way.
Maybe swipe right or left. I'm not sure how it works, but swipe
Swipe
if you like us on.
If you like bald men with beards.
There was 3 of us today.
Yes, it was. Well, anyway, we don't really have any personal news now because of for various reasons.
That's true.
That's true. There's been some changes, but check out our books. Face of Fear still available wherever you get your books. How is it with Dead Man Walking? Is it still available?
Yeah, it's still available for now. Basically, long story short, it's moving to a different publisher, and so is the whole Nick Halloran series. So the second one was going to be due out in March, but that has been delayed while it goes to a new publisher. So maybe don't check out Dead Man Walking.
Okay.
But you can if you like. But it may well get relaunched in the near future.
Very good, very good.
I do have a series coming out though soon. That's going to be ramping up. The publicity for that's going to be ramping up pretty soon. Very excited about it. In Solitude's Shadow. I'm very, very excited about that. So that's out in June, which is only actually 4 months away.
Something like that.
Yeah. Not long. We'll have finished. We'll be on to the Dragon Reborn by that point.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
And our times will be a little different because hopefully, God willing, I'll be in the States then.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe. We'll see.
You never know.
You never know. Okay. Well, until the next turning of the wheel.
That is true. The next turn of the wheel it is.